Hi, my name's Gareth and I make videos helping people to get higher scores in the IELTS test. In last week's video, we looked at a cue card for part 2 of the IELTS speaking test. It was actually a cue card that was requested by someone in the comments. If you haven't already seen that video, it might be worth looking at and the link is just above. Now what we're going to do in this video is look at the full sample answer for this cue card, following the ideas and vocabulary we talked about in the previous video. That's why it might be useful to also see that video before you look at this sample answer. Now, just before we look at the sample answer, I just think I should remind us that if you want to see similar videos in the future on similar topics, then remember to subscribe to the channel. And if you do find this video useful, then don't forget to give it a like. Right, so let's look at this cue card. Now, of course, we looked at it in the previous video. It's asking us to describe a time when our computer broke down. And we've got those 4 cues there. When it was, what you were doing, what you did about it, and how you felt about it. Now, what I'll do is show you my full answer to this task card following those 4 cues and the ideas we thought of in the previous video with some of that vocabulary included in the answer. After I've given you the answer, then we'll analyze it a little bit and think about why it's a really high level answer and it would get a very high band score in the IELTS speaking test. Right, here we go. I'm going to tell you about a time when my PC stopped working. It was early in the morning sometime last year. I woke up and went into my office to switch on my computer, still bleary-eyed and feeling half asleep. I wanted to quickly check my emails before getting ready for a full day of work. I pressed a button on my PC and it started to boot up. After a few seconds, it just cut out. So I tried to switch it on again, but it kept doing the same thing. By this time, I had fully woken up as I was finding it quite worrying that my computer wasn't working, and I might have lost some important documents. I thought I could maybe fix the problem myself and got my laptop out to search for solutions on the internet. I spent about an hour trying to solve the issue without any luck, and eventually ended up calling a friend who is more tech savvy than me. He popped round shortly after and was able to mend the PC in a matter of minutes. I was so glad it was all over. When my computer wasn't working first thing in the morning, I was panicking and felt really worried that it might not be able to be fixed. The fact that I couldn't solve the problem myself was rather annoying. Usually I can work out computer issues. Well, with a little help from the internet. This time I had to rely on a friend to help me, which at first made me feel a bit foolish. But once it was fixed, I was just relieved. The experience made me appreciate that friend, and now I definitely owe him a favour. So there we go, that's the full answer there. You would have noticed that I went through the cues on the cue card in that order, from the first one to the last one, so it included pretty much 4 paragraphs of information, and that's what you saw there. What I want to do now is just go through each of those paragraphs in a bit of detail so we can think about the good things that I did in that answer, the things that would have given me a higher score in the IELTS test. So let's have a look at that first paragraph that was thinking about the cue when it was, talking about time. Now, of course, here I'm giving a short introduction to the speaking I'm going to tell you about. This is a nice kind of set introduction that we can use in part 2 of the speaking test. You don't always have to use this, but it's nice. It's a good way to introduce using the future expression, I'm going to. It's doing some nice things with pronunciation features as well. Combining the I and the am is something that native speakers do. We drop that vowel sound. I'm going to tell you about. Nothing too complex there. Then we tried to paraphrase a little bit. We've said a time when my PC stopped working. So instead of saying computer broke down, PC stopped working. Just showing a bit of a range of vocabulary there. So good for my lexical resource score. Then I go into a bit more detail on time. It was early in the morning sometime last year. So just giving the general time of when it was. And here in the next sentence, we give a bit more detail. I woke up and went into my office to switch on my computer. Nothing too complex there, but we're using the past tenses. Simple, past simple we're using there, nothing too difficult. But then we go into a bit of detail on my feeling at the time. I was still bleary-eyed and feeling half asleep. So we've got that word we talked about last week in the video, bleary-eyed, meaning you're not very awake. You're feeling quite tired, to be bleary-eyed. And also the word half asleep here, which we didn't talk about last week, but again, it's another word that means tired. So it's giving the idea of this is the feeling early in the morning. There we go. So that's kind of covered enough about when it was. Not much detail there. Of course, in the next cues, we're going to have to go into a bit more detail to fill the time a bit more. So if we look at the second one, which was talking about what you were doing or what I was doing. So here it is. I wanted to quickly check my emails before getting ready for a full day of work. Again, nothing too complex here, but we're still using the past tenses. We've got the phrase check my emails. Good collocation there between the verb check and the noun emails. And then also to get ready before getting ready for a full day of work. So the phrasal verb get ready for there, which means to prepare for. But this is nice spoken vocabulary there, slightly idiomatic because it is a phrasal verb. Then we go into a bit more detail about what we were doing. We pressed a button. Again, good collocation between the verb and the noun there. And we're using that phrasal verb, boot up. Well, the PC started to boot up. And this is specific vocabulary for computers. When it's starting up or starting to work, it boots up. So a nice phrasal verb there. But then, of course, in the next sentence, I explain that it cut out. So it stopped working, to cut out. Again, showing a bit of variety with vocabulary there and still using some good phrasal verbs. And then, of course, a bit more detail there. I tried to switch it on again and it kept doing the same thing. Again, we're being consistent with the verb tense here. We're not saying keep, we're saying kept, the past tense. Showing off some good pronunciation features here. We've got that consonant cluster at the end of kept, the P and the T together, which some students find quite difficult. And then in the final sentence there, we're actually here, if you notice, using past perfect. By this time, I had fully woken up. So we're using verb 3 there, a bit of variety with tense and grammar there, but it still fits the situation. We're still using the past tenses, but here it's past perfect. I had fully woken up. As I was finding it quite worrying that my computer wasn't working and I might have lost some important documents. There we go. We're just, again, going into lots of detail on what I was doing. Okay, so let's move on to that third cue, which is what you did about it, or what I did about it. And you can see here, we start by saying, I thought I could maybe fix the problem myself. Again, we're just using the past tense there, past simple, but we've got nice collocation between fix and problem there. A good verb and noun to use in this context. Then I got my laptop out to search for solutions on the internet. Again, good collocation between search and internet. It fits here, to search the internet. Then we talk about time, how long I spent doing something. I spent about an hour trying to solve the issue. So here we're making sure we're using the right verb about time, to spend an hour doing something. Also using the past tense. Also, you'll notice here I said to solve the issue. I didn't want to repeat the phrase fix the problem. Just using some synonyms here to show a variety or a range of vocabulary, pushing up my lexical resource score again. But without any luck. Without any luck. A nice phrase that native speakers will use in general conversation. And I eventually ended up calling a friend to end up doing something. So the final thing that you do. And again, a nice phrasal verb to use in this context. But I'm describing the friend with the adjective we talked about last week, which was tech savvy. He's more tech savvy than me. Tech savvy is the adjective we use to describe people who are really good with technology and specifically computers. So a nice adjective to use there. Then the final sentence of that paragraph, I said he popped round shortly after. Now here again, another phrasal verb, which is idiomatic language, to pop round, which means to visit someone, often for a short amount of time. And we'll find out next, it is for a short amount of time. It doesn't take long for him to fix the problem. He was able to mend the PC in a matter of minutes. So this means it only took him a few minutes to fix the computer. Again, notice the synonym of fix and solve. We're not using those words again. We're using the verb mend, which is another synonym of those words. We're showing a range of vocabulary. It doesn't look like anything too complex, but we're showing this wide range, which is going to impress the examiner. So let's move on to the final cue, which is how I felt about it. It's always good to get to this final cue because we get to talk more about feelings and use some good adjectives. If you remember in the last week's video, we looked at some good adjectives here to describe feeling. So I've started by saying I was so glad it was all over. So first of all, we start with a feeling, the word glad, which we didn't look at last week, but to be happy, basically. When my computer wasn't working first thing in the morning, I was panicking. So describing what we were doing, using past continuous tense here. And felt really worried that it might not be able to be fixed. And if you notice here, I'm actually using passive voice. It might not be able to be fixed because it's not me that's fixing it, it's someone else who fixed it in the end. The fact that I couldn't solve the problem myself. A bit of repetition here from words we used before, but we can't avoid this. We've already used 3 different words for fix. It was rather annoying, so I'm describing the situation as being annoying. Of course, I felt annoyed. And I explained a little bit why afterwards. Usually, I can work out computer issues. So here I've got a phrasal verb which actually has the same meaning as solve, fix, and mend, really, to work something out, to work out computer issues, computer problems. With a little help from the internet, so I just added that detail. Using the word help there as a noun to get help from something or someone. But then in the next sentence, you'll see I use help in a different way. This time I had to rely on a friend to help me. So here I'm using help again, but it's as a verb, not a noun. So I'm showing a bit of skill here with the way I'm using the same word in a different way. Also notice there the verb and preposition to rely on someone, which means that you can trust them or believe them that they can do something. So I had to trust them that they could help me. And at first I've said that this made me feel foolish, a little bit silly, the adjective that we actually talked about in the previous video. But then again, once it was fixed, I felt relieved. Another adjective to describe feelings, right? The adjective relieved, which we did talk about last time. But of course, this means that you feel like you were stressed about something before, but then in the end, it's okay. And that's the feeling. It's relieved. And then the final sentence, I'm just saying the experience made me appreciate or value that friend. And then we switch into the present tense. We say, and now I definitely owe him a favor. So we're actually talking about now, of course. I kind of need to help him back because he helped me, so I owe him a favor. So there we go. That's going through the answer in a bit of detail there and kind of explaining why some of the vocabulary was really good and also the grammar was appropriate, and I showed enough range there. Most of it was focused in the past tense, but we use past simple, past continuous and past perfect, so a nice variety there. And we also added in a bit of present tense at the end there in the final paragraph as well. You'll notice at the beginning we had that future expression as well, I'm going to. So a nice variety of grammar there and tenses, some use of passive voice as well, showing a really wide range of grammar, wide range of vocabulary, and of course the fluency and coherence is good here and pronunciation is clear. So this kind of answer would get a really, really high score in the IELTS speaking test. And it's a good example for you to look at and think of things that you can use from this answer in your own answers. So there we go. I hope the video was useful to you. And again, if it really was, then do click the like button. And if you don't want to miss out on any similar videos in the future on other topics in the IELTS test, then remember to click the subscribe button. There we go. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you in the next video.